Yeah, it's about speed, not quality, right? It's about trying to secure and lock down candidates before anyone else calls them. And
Makes sense.
so if you think about this is my favorite example. I want you to imagine it's tax season and you've got to get your taxes done and you send your taxes to five CPAs, and then you're just going to actually pay the only person who finished first. Not best, not highest quality. They didn't save you the most money in taxes. It's just a race. It's silly. You wouldn't do that. Welcome to Salesforce Hiring Edge, the show for leaders who want to hire smarter and scale faster with Salesforce.
Whether you're building a team or bringing in a consulting partner, we're breaking down what actually works in the real world.
All right, let's get into it.
This episode is brought to you by the SalesforceRecruiter.com.
Well, today's kind of a neat episode because Josh LaQuire is actually going to be interviewing me. I haven't been interviewed in a really long time, so I'm excited about this topic. Why don't you share with everybody what we're going to cover today?
Sure. Thanks, Josh. I want to cover the topic about how to vet a good recruiter. Let's start with the positives. When a business leader is evaluating a recruiter, what are some immediate green lights or positive signs they should look for?
Great question. Experience counts. I mean, you want to hire a recruiter like you're hiring someone for your team, right? And so they really should have some level of depth of experience specifically in your field. There's so many different types of recruiters. There are specialized recruiters. There are generalist recruiters. Some people recruit for accountants and office staff and technologists. Other people just focus on technology. They're still generalists. But if you've got a very critical, very specific role in mind or a team that you're trying to build, I would just pick whoever is a specialist. Like I saw someone yesterday who had referred me. She's a specialist in NetSuite. That's all she does all day long. And so when you've got that depth of experience or that specialty focus, you're probably going to have a better reputation in the ecosystem. You're going to be more connected to people. Let's say somebody talks to 500 people a year or 1,000 people a year. You would want them to be talking to the 500 or 1,000 people that do what you do, not 50 of the 500 do the role that you're trying to hire for. So that's where I would start.
Maybe take that a step further. I'm really curious, beyond just saying a recruiter would specialize in Salesforce, and how can a leader verify a recruiter's actual depth of knowledge in the Salesforce ecosystem, the different roles, products, market demands?
Yeah, I would say I would say this is true for any ecosystem, not just Salesforce, right? Just first jump on their LinkedIn, see how long they've been doing it. I mean, everything that you want to know about someone, if they're a recruiter, they're on LinkedIn for one. Okay. It's going to be pretty apparent how much influence they have in the marketplace based on followers, how active they are. Are they promoting thought leadership? You don't have to be an old guy like me to be a great recruiter, by the way. I'd say most recruiters are in their 20s and 30s, and some of them are really fantastic. So if they don't have 20,000 followers, it's okay. You just want to see that they're involved. Do they have a history of success in their own firms? I mean, we look at job hoppers all the time. I mean, if you're talking to a recruiter and they've got 10 years of experience, but it's at 10 different companies, chances are they're not that great. Right? I mean, if they were great, they would have stayed somewhere and grown in that organization. So you just evaluate in a very cursory way your recruiter the same way that you would be evaluating a candidate to come on board. You don't have to be as critical. You don't have to have as many conversations, but you need to approach it with, I just want to make sure that this person is in the right space and other people like them. Right? Like there's been some sort of success. A little bit of searching on social media will tell you that. Reviews will tell you that. And oftentimes, I think it's really important to state when companies are looking for a recruiter, they often don't know who to go to from an individual standpoint. They're thinking about the companies, right? So what company should I use? And especially with larger companies, you're going to get this massive range of skill set. If you're trying to hire a realtor and you go to Remax, well, some people have 1 month of real estate experience and other people have 25 years of successful, progressive knowledge and experience in your specific neighborhood, in your specific town. I mean, go to them. They don't cost more.
That makes a lot of sense, Josh. Now, I do want to dive a little bit. You had mentioned fees a minute ago, and this is an interesting topic, in my opinion. What kind of transparency should a leader expect working with a recruiter regarding process, sourcing, fee structures?
Yeah, well, that's a lot. So I'll just start with fee structures. I think it's very helpful if a recruiter, if you ask them what are the fees, one, I wouldn't ask that before you've built some sort of rapport with them. This is just like they're interviewing you too. And I say no to companies, maybe not every single week, but certainly every month. If they just call up and say, "What are your fees?" Guess what? I am not going to beat the lowest bidder. There's no way I'm going to beat the lowest bidder. I'm going to be, you know, greater value. Yeah, of course. So you want to figure out what's going on there. And I think when push comes to shove, you should just tell them. A good recruiter should just tell you, this is my fee structure. And for full time hires, it's generally a percentage of someone's base salary. You also want to understand, how do they mark up contractors? Like we don't do a percentage. Back in the old days when I was with the Fortune 500, we'd do a percentage, and I was getting some of the highest percentages you could get, like 83% markup. I think the market's changed, and so I just go with a flat number, a flat dollar amount per hour on someone, so it's more transparent. And at the end of the day, you really want, I think, most of your money to be going to the candidate. When you spend more on a candidate, you generally get a higher value candidate who can do more and cause less headaches and cause less problems. So at the low level, there's always that minimum that someone wants to make. But when you get to the higher level, more expensive people like architects and stuff, I just cap the fee at a certain amount per hour. And I think companies that do that are being responsible to their customers. They're giving them a better chance.
Makes sense, right? I would think, being in my shoes, working with you, Josh, knowing what to expect and what to pay is paramount. I don't necessarily care about what margin you're making. I care about what my costs are going to be, to
Yeah.
be very brutally honest with you.
And the quality of the candidate that you're going to get.
Well, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I
That
think
comes
I think
first.
that I would start there with pricing. Just here's the other thing: conversion fees. So there's something out there called contract to hire. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's a thing. It's a real thing. And when it comes to contract to hire, usually someone's bringing on a contractor, and then over time, the longer that they're with that firm, it reduces their conversion fee, or what the fee is going to be. So let's say the fee is 25% of their salary. Well, if they've worked 1,000 hours, that should reduce that fee. There are companies out there that won't do that, competitors of mine even, where nope, that's them as a contractor. And if you want them, you're going to pay the full fee. I think that there should be a little bit of a give, a little bit of, cost reduction for having already earned X amount on the placement of a candidate. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, you know, going a step further, how does a truly effective recruiter go about understanding the specific needs and, I'd say importantly, the culture of your client's company rather than just matching keywords on a resume?
Yeah. I mean, you've got to start with a relationship, right? And relationships take time, and that's time together. So the more time you spend with someone, everybody knows this, the more time you spend with someone, and then the more intense those experiences are, the deeper the bonds with those people go. There's taking the job order, but then it really requires having that direct communication, ideally with the hiring manager, right? The fewer steps or people in between the headhunter or the recruiter and the actual person that they're going to be placing the person with, the professional with, the more you're going to understand their personality, right? The more you're going to understand exactly what their needs are. Now, that's a big, nice sort of long way of saying just get to know somebody. But in the short term, how do you do that? Well, you've got to ask really good questions. I mean, you asked about culture. Culture gets defined in like 5 to 10 different ways. I like to think of it as common behaviors within a company. Work culture isn't Taco Tuesday lunches, or Friday, summer Fridays, you're off at 2. Like, that's not culture. Those are benefits. Those are cool little things. Culture is actually, and we did this with you'll recall, this is like 6 years ago, at the Coterie. We did a big evaluation. We used profiles to really determine what are the common attributes of the people who are most successful. Now, if you really want to like go hardcore and figure out what your culture is, then you can do psychometric testing of top team members and then evaluate candidates against that. I definitely recommend it. It takes a little bit longer. It adds a little bit of cost, but it's a great way to do it. Now, if you're not going to do that, and that's fine, you don't have to, most people don't, then what you have to do is just find out, like, tell me about your top performers. What are they like? What do they do? And sometimes they just describe it like, hey, look, they're really funny. Everyone here is really funny. They're pretty relaxed. They're hardworking, but they don't kill themselves at it. Other companies are going to say like, hey, we put in the time. I know people have families, but we've got important critical work we're doing. If you're leaving at 5, you're leaving way too early. You don't want to be the new person who's walking out at 5 o'clock and you turn around, there's 40 people still sitting at their desk. I know we're all remote now, so it doesn't really work, but still, you don't want to be the first person to be away on the Slack channel, I guess.
You're right.
So you just figure out, what are those things? Are they hardworking? Are they patient? Are they good listeners? Are they drivers? Do they push hard? Are they yes people, just nod and get it done? Are they independent? Do people operate independently? Are you going to be really managing them? Are you going to be getting all up in their jazz, Josh? Right? Like, how much are you
Not
going
my
to
company.
actually be involved with their day to day? Or do you need someone who is like, just leave it to me. I got it. I'll give you a report on Thursday. We can talk for 10 minutes on Friday, and then I'm going to keep going. And so you just have to ask questions around that from a culture standpoint.
You hit on a lot of really interesting points there, Josh. And I think what made you very attractive to me and my partners at my last job as a recruiter was exactly that. You weren't just necessarily filling an order, right? You were really trying to understand us, who we were, how we operated. I think you did a good job discerning that, translating that into a workable strategy to help us find great candidates, and it worked out well. Yeah.
Any good recruiter is going to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's really important to note. I mean, this is because you're asking me questions about what people can do, and I think it's really important to share, kind of like we talked about client engagement on the episode, similar
Yeah.
episode, but more about how do you hire the right consulting firm? That client engagement piece is no different when it comes to recruiting. That manager access is important. And when you're selecting a good recruiter, you want someone who's not going to be afraid or nervous to have conversations with senior leadership or to push back. I think as a customer of a recruiting firm, the clients really should, number one, pick someone who's great. I mean, just pick someone who's really good, right? Start there. Okay. And then carve out time for that person, especially if you're just going to hire one person, whatever, one person a year, it's not a big deal. If you're trying to really build a team, you should really get to know the recruiter, because if you're getting to know them, they're getting to know you. And if they're getting to know you, they're going to be able to do a way better job of protecting your time. They're not going to send you candidates that aren't going to work out, right? They're going to send people that are going to join your company and last for a really long time. I think too, it's really important to, if you can, work with a single recruiter. You can work with a lot of recruiters if you don't trust the recruiters that you're working with. Does that make sense?
It does. It's almost like you're kind of putting them in a competitive situation. And I'm curious, Josh, and I don't mean to take you off track here, but when you have multiple recruiters working for you in a competitive situation, doesn't that elicit different behavior from the recruiters themselves, and what they're going to
Yeah.
do for you?
Yeah. It's about speed, not quality, right? It's about trying to secure and lock down candidates before anyone else calls them. And
Makes sense.
so if you think about this, this is my favorite example. I want you to imagine it's tax season and you've got to get your taxes done, and you send your taxes to five CPAs, and then you're just going to actually pay the only person who finished first. Not best, not highest quality. They didn't save you the most money in taxes. It's just a race. It's silly. You wouldn't
Well,
do that.
I think there's, as a hiring manager, when you're working with your recruiter, maybe a good tip here is to really think about, the spectrum of fast, cheap, and good, right? Pick two, the way we like to say in our business. Do you want it fast? Do you want it good? And I think it probably applies to your business as much as it does mine. You have to really kind of balance that spectrum and figure out what the optimal, kind of risk equation is for you.
Totally. And like, dude, we are not like, if United Health Group called up and said, Josh, we need 30 developers, by the end of June, like I'm not your guy. Like, it's not going to happen. Like it's just not. Maybe someday, but we're not big enough to do that, and it would probably require us to skirt some of the things that we do, like video interviewing versus just quick phone calls and getting them in the loop. That kind of thing. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense, Josh. Now, I'm really curious. I'd love to flip to the other side. What are some significant red flags that hiring manager might make a hiring manager pause or even walk away when they're first engaging with a recruiter?
I mean, just can they gain rapport with you? If someone's talking in a robotic way, if they're communicating, this is just like any sales thing. If the recruiter can't build rapport with you, it's unlikely that they're going to be building rapport with the top candidates that you like, right?
Very good point.
Now, the good news is most recruiters, I think most recruiters, maybe not all, maybe not even half, but at a certain level, like if they've been doing it for a few years, then they're probably going to be pretty good at developing rapport. And that's a really good thing because a recruiter who can build rapport with you can build rapport with the candidates. If they can build rapport with the candidates will open up to them. The candidates open up to them, they will know more about them and be able to help guide you whether or not it's a good decision to bring someone on, or even, hey, bring them on. However, you're going to have to keep this person really busy. They get bored fast. Like that kind of insight can be very helpful versus waiting 3 or 4 months and going, what happened? I thought this person was awesome. And the whole time that candidate's not communicating what they need, but the recruiter could have said, keep this person busy, give them a lot of work. They get bored fast.
I think you're touching on the human side of all this, right? We tend to, or I tend to make the mistake sometimes. I won't speak for everybody that I look at these things as jobs or projects or tasks, but forgetting that, hey, this is a human resource and we need to think about the relationship and everything around the job and the task. And that's I think I got to be honest with you, with my clients, with my suppliers, with my business, people I hire, people who have hired me. I don't know. Not everybody out there kind of thinks at that level of relationship. So these are really good pearls of wisdom. I have some other questions I'd like to ask. I think
Yeah, go for
the
it.
next one that comes to mind is my experience, and I'm sure a lot of folks listening to the show have experienced this. We hear quite a bit about recruiters who spam companies with irrelevant resumes. And how can our listeners identify recruiters more focused on quality over quantity? And why is that approach, spamming resumes, detrimental?
Well, it actually works. For one, it actually works. It doesn't work for my business, but it does work. The problem with the irrelevant resumes is it's just cheap content. Does that make sense? I have a different approach. We put a lot of time into creating these videos or writing blogs or going to conferences. If you're out there and getting involved, then you can send things more than just a bunch of resumes. But the idea is to just stay top of mind,
Yeah,
right? It's
stay
not that
fresh.
this .NET developer that someone sent you from some company, probably in India, wants to pitch you. It's that, like, oh, that's a recruiter and I need a recruiter, and click respond. Hey, I don't need that, but I do need this. It's just top of mind. So it does work, but it's kind of annoying. Josh, I think that this part's really important. Very few people go to college to be headhunters. I think there's one program in the country in college. No one wakes up and like, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to, work at an agency and be a headhunter or be a recruiter for a technical staffing firm. That's no one's dream. Okay. But what it does attract are all the people who are pretty good with people, okay with sales, but don't necessarily really want to be full-blown salespeople, right? And they're just interested in people more than things. It attracts a lot of the I don't know what I want to do people. I was an art major, so of course I'm a headhunter, right? So knowing that a lot of people are going to come in, especially to the large companies, and there's massive churn. I mean, very few people make it a full year. So especially the larger the company that you're engaging with, the more likely you are to see high turnover. And so if you call up a big company like a Robert Half or Kforce or Tech Systems, those are great companies. They have helped thousands of companies all over the world, probably tens of thousands of managers build great teams, but not everyone in that company has done a great job. So when you call, it's like, hey, who is your most experienced person who specializes in this in my town or in my field? You just call the front desk. They'll tell you, say, great, can you connect me with them? Right. Or you can get referrals in your own network. Hey, who have you worked for or worked with that's been awesome. And that's what we do. We work on referrals all the time. It's you do. I mean, everyone
Yeah,
listening to
that's
this
right.
show knows what referrals are. Go get a referral. Call your friends. Who have you guys used? And they'll be like, they were okay. If they say they're okay, it means they were bad. If they say that they were pretty good, it means they were average. If they say they're like freaking amazing, oh my God, changed our business, that's who you want to work with.
That's good advice. Yeah, I think people will generally be kind. They're not going to say somebody was terrible unless they feel comfortable saying that. But they will say somebody's great when they think somebody's great. That's
Yeah.
100% true.
Yeah.
That's interesting, Josh. So you kind of played into something else that I hear a lot from folks I've worked with, that sometimes recruiters can be a little pushy, right? I'm really curious what your thoughts are about pressure tactics. How can leaders, hiring managers handle recruiters might seem aggressive or pushy? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? What are some good and bad things about kind of the sales side of recruiting and pushing candidates and that kind of stuff?
No one has ever asked me that before. That is a really good question. Yeah. Any quality maximized too much becomes a liability. The quality of being quote unquote pushy is a good thing. I'm like, greed, for lack of a better word, is good, right? So, Gordon Gecko over here. The reality is, you want a level of that pushiness. The top candidates are out of reach. The top candidates can't be contacted. The top candidates don't care about your stupid LinkedIn message. It's the 30th they've got that week, or the 40th they've got that week, or that phone number that pops up that they don't recognize. They're never even going to listen to your voicemail. So, if you don't have a certain level of, I'll call it persistence and creativity, to be able to access those candidates, then you've already lost the race. Like, you're not going to be able to deliver great people. And by great people, I mean probably not always, but 90% of the time, people who are currently working and not necessarily looking. So to access that, you have to have that quality, but you can overdo it. So it's a good quality. I do think that there is a point when clients need to listen to the recruiter when they're being pushy. I might say to you, Josh, I submitted this candidate to you 24 hours ago. It's not a resume to review. I've reviewed it. I've pre-screened them. I did a 45-minute, hour-long interview with them. You've got all the notes. You need to schedule time. You haven't given me times available. This person's hot. They're interviewing elsewhere. By the way, they're talking to Deloitte. Deloitte will drop $30,000 on them on day one just to get them to go over. You don't have that budget. All you have is speed, and I'm not seeing it. So pretty pleased with sugar on top. What is your next available, 45-minute time slot that you can talk to this person, right? You should
Yeah, and
listen
I
to
think
that. That's pushy, but that's to your benefit.
it is, right? I think the message here is speed does matter when you're vetting a good candidate, and you need to trust that the recruiter you hired is actually doing these things for you, not against you, right? Like, you have to have that level of, I hired the right expert to do this job, and this expert is telling me to move fast, and I need to move fast.
Yeah. I call it tempo, right? Have a good tempo. Ideally, from the time you talk to someone to the time you're done with your interview process. Now, this is not all companies, right? We know Salesforce takes a long time. We know Netflix has 8 interviews. We know that the more senior the role, the longer that will go, typically. And it could be 2 months from start to finish. But you definitely want someone, I think, once they're in the loop, at least in our industry for technical roles and functional roles, you would ideally want to get someone from talking to them and then through your process, your technical interview, your, cultural conversations or team member meetings, whatever else you've got that's part of your process. You want to get them through that process inside of 2 weeks.
Hmm, interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
they're looking. I mean, if you're talking,
Yeah.
it's different. If someone's like, well, here's something to consider. I want you to imagine that you need some unicorn. Your recruiter finds that unicorn for you. It takes them 3 weeks. They find that unicorn for you. They present that candidate to you. What's going to happen as soon as that passive candidate who has a job that they like, who's already compensated very well, who wasn't even thinking about leaving their company, but will for the right offer and for the right opportunity, that person's brain is now going, these people are treating me really nicely. They're talking big numbers. I wonder what else is out there. Passive candidates only stay passive for a couple weeks.
Makes
As
sense.
soon as you get them, as soon as they agree to interview with you, that's not a passive candidate anymore. And now the world's their oyster.
That makes a lot of sense, Josh. And that honestly is great perspective for me, selfishly. I'm going to keep that in mind for my next hire. But I think that's good advice for all the folks listening to this show. I think we kind of tend to think like, oh, we're in the driver's seat, we're hiring somebody, we're throwing the paychecks out. They can wait on us, but that's not the right mentality. I think as a hiring manager, as an employer, that's a dangerous assumption.
Here's a tip for everyone out there, regardless of who you're hiring, who you're going through, who you're working with, whatever. When you know that you need to hire someone, oftentimes it's because you're understaffed. I mean, there are a handful of people that are like, oh, we've got this project and we're resource planning and it's going to come up. But no, let's face it. If you're listening to this show, chances are at some point in your life, you've been like, I'm overwhelmed. My team's overwhelmed. The work's not getting done. Now you're in a horrible position because you didn't resource plan, or maybe someone quit, right? And you're just kind of left holding the bag. And that's not a good feeling. That doesn't feel good at all. So what happens is you're so busy now that you don't have time for recruiting. But your only way out of this pit is to have interviews and hire someone. So carve out time, just time block. If you're working with a recruiter, you say, "Hey Josh, how many interviews do you expect I'll likely have with initial interviews next week?" I might say 3, and they'll each need to be 45 minutes. Can you give me 2 time blocks of 2 hours so I can work with that? And then you go into your calendar and you hit block. And then no one can book a meeting and you're not booking a meeting. And guess what? If there's no meeting that time, that's okay. You're going to get other work done, but it's at
These
least protected.
these sound like trivial things, but they're not, right? Carving out time is the ultimate roadblock to getting any of the remaining cascading 9 or 10 events that need to occur. So that's incredibly good advice, Josh.
Client engagement,
Yeah, that's
it
exactly what it
starts with
is.
your calendar.
Yeah,
Make the
I
time.
think you're right. What are 2 or 3 of the most critical questions they should ask during the initial vetting call or vetting process?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think we kind of covered some of it at the beginning. How long have you done this? Right? Can you tell me about a couple recent placements, and what's your process? If the process doesn't include video interviewing, then you're dealing with a different level of recruiter. So, do you do video interviewing? Do you give me a write up? Can
Yeah.
you send me an example of a profile that you've put together for someone? So, as an example, like when I'm submitting a candidate, I take all of my notes from probably 2 conversations, and I put that together so that they can get the insights. A lot of people will put in notes, and all they're doing are highlights from the resume, right? Oh, this person has 5 years experience, and they have a degree in this, and they have these certifications, and they've have 2 years as a solution architect. Okay, like I could see that in 5 seconds on the resume. What I want to know is, when things go wrong, what do they do? What's the one thing that they're actually really working on? What's the third party evidence? What would their managers agree on consistently? If there's one thing that their family believes would improve their life the most, what would be that thing? Man, you'll hear all sorts of stuff. My temper, you'll hear I could lose weight. I could carve out more time for my family. I could be more patient. You're going to learn a lot about someone, and it's the recruiter's job to pull that out, because you, as a hiring manager, you're not a professional interviewer. You probably never were. If you've got 100 interviews under your belt, congratulations. You've got 3 months of junior recruiting experience. Like, that's nothing. And
And you and I
so,
talked about this once. I remember you'd asked me, "How many interviews have you done, Josh?" And I thought maybe 80 or 100. And then I asked you, and you said, "Oh, I think maybe 15,000 or 20,000." And it kind of
no, it
blew my
was a 20,
mind.
but yeah,
Yeah, something like
yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah. And you just think about, I think about like Malcolm Gladwell's, the 10,000 hours of expertise. So what do you need there? Well, you need, that's 5 solid years. If someone hasn't done it for 5 years, they're going to be pretty junior. Doesn't mean don't give them a shot. They might be really good, but they should cut their teeth on someone other than you.
makes sense. What is the ultimate advice you could give to our audience when they're looking for a recruiter who would genuinely drive their business forward by finding the right talent? What would that be? What's that ultimate advice?
That's such a hard question. I would invest in your own interviewing ability. I mean, you can lean on a recruiter. You can lean on me, I'll be your friend. But if the process sort of stops there, the quality of the process stops there, I don't know. I don't know if your success is going to be that great. Get really good at doing your part. You can pick a good recruiter and work with them. They're going to take care of you. But you've got to take care of all of those conversations inside. Have a process. What kinds of questions are you asking? How do you interpret those answers? Get good at interviewing. Watch some YouTube videos, practice, train it, come in with a plan, and then check your biases or check your bias. Like, if I'm in love with this candidate, I need to find out why I'm not. I got to find some dirt on them. If I don't like this person, I got to find a reason why, I really like them.
Thank you. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate everything you've shared here. Has been insightful for me, especially, and I plan on integrating this into my own endeavors.
Right on, man. If you're serious about leveling up your Salesforce game, hit up ccurrents.com for pro level implementations, services, and application development. And if you're hiring or looking, the salesforcerecruiter.com. It's where connections are made.